the meeting to order. Can I get a roll call starting from my right, please?
Lillian Reese here.
Louis Ponte here. Terms Perry present.
Keen present.
Silent here.
Okay, we have a quorum for tonight's meeting. We have a few matters that are being put to us. We're going to have some information presented to us for the record for everyone to hear. But I'm going to say, so that everyone knows where we're going with this, that we are going to reschedule to do a vote on the matters presented for us to Thursday evening of this week. And regarding the rezoning of certain properties, that is not going to be placed to a vote by the board tonight. We will introduce some things into evidence tonight, and after that we're going to make the meeting curtailed, because it's not going to be a full meeting where we have information presented to us that we haven't had a chance to review. And for fairness to my fellow board members, I want to give them an opportunity to read through this information before we can present it for a vote, because we're not going to vote on something not being totally aware of everything that needs to be considered. So that's where we are today. So we're looking at rezoning of certain properties and parcels, but it's not going to be placed to a vote tonight. But there are evidences of material that wants to be presented, and we want to make sure we have something put into the public record so we can proceed on a knowledgeable basis on Thursday evening at 7 p.m. That's what we're going to do. Okay? So with that being said, I'll pass it over to the attorney.
Members of the board, Phil Fernaro, on behalf of the Village of Broadview, the applicant in this particular location. If we can swear in Mr. Aiello, because we turn having testimony related to this matter.
You can raise your right hand, please. And speak loud enough for recording it, so I want to make sure that we're able to hear it. You swear that all the information going to be given this evening is truthful, and that it's going to be put in the public record, so they have to read it. Recording of that's presented this evening.
All right, just so there's a little background related to the application and what we're doing here tonight. The village passed a resolution. The village board passed a resolution directing the village staff to proceed with an application to do a text amendment and a map amendment as it related to the manufacturing district and the OI district. So as a result of the authority from the village, they authorized that to happen. Okay. Recently, we sent out notice and we published in the newspaper, and these will come through the exhibits, so I'm not going to get specific, and we'll slowly go through the exhibits that you have in front of you today, to allow for this type of hearing, to have the zoning board here opine as to whether or not they believe certain text amendments and certain map amendments should be made to the zoning code. And obviously, as we've done before, we've been very active lately in the zoning arena now, we've had a lot more activity. You understand that you take this under consideration, you're an advisory body, and you're here for the purposes of advising or recommending or not recommending to the board, the village board of trustees, as to whether or not they should proceed. And then the village board will make the final determination as to whether or not they believe they should accept the recommendation or deny it and pass an ordinance related thereto. So that is the basic background as it relates to this particular location. Now we're talking about properties in the area around the OI district now. We're talking about changing from OI to manufacturing. So as to move slowly through it, before I get more in depth, I want to go through each one of those exhibits, and then we'll have a point of discussion, if that's acceptable to the board. Mr. Rose, please step up. All right, do you have a list of the exhibits? All right, let's slowly go through the exhibits. And there's going to be exhibit A, B, C, D, E, F, and G and H. Those are the exhibits that we have today. Can you briefly, and we'll get more specific, describe what exhibit A is?
Exhibit A is the application to the Village of Broadview requesting proposed tax amendment.
And exhibit B?
Exhibit B are amendments to the ordinance that Mr. Cornell just mentioned, passed in 2008, as relating to adult uses.
And that ordinance that was reflected is actually exhibit F. Is that correct? It's all within the...
It's in the application.
This is it all? I keep on flipping. One more page. Sorry, that's B. So that's it's entitled, for the record, it's in dark print, amended 10-4-6, 11's in parentheses, adult businesses. And the reflection of that is 10-4-6 is an amendment to the ordinance that's attached to Exhibit F. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, we'll discuss Exhibit F shortly. Exhibit C, and I don't know if that's marked as well, is the actual map.
That is the map that shows the proposed map changes from OIM. There are 4 parcels, basically along 25th with the hash marks on them.
So that's west of 25th, the 4 parcels, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Exhibit D, what's Exhibit D?
Exhibit D is a table showing existing and proposed changes to the use list for the OI and M districts.
And just so that we understand, the uses listed along the left column, the OI district is the next 2 columns, and then the manufacturing district is the next 2 columns. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it distinguishes between existing and proposed use. Is that correct?
Yes, it distinguishes between existing and proposed changes, and it lays out permitted, special, and conditional uses.
Just so that we know, so it's clear for the record, what does P stand for?
P is a permitted use, S is a special use, and C is conditional use. Those are the 3 classifications of uses in your zone.
All right, so that should take care of that packet A through D. What is Exhibit B?
Exhibit B is certification of property owners in question. The property is supposed to be rezoned. That is certification that they were notified.
Okay, that was notified. Related to certified.
Certified, yes.
Let's shoot on to Exhibit F.
Exhibit F is the existing ordinance that we referred to earlier, passed in 2008, relating to adult uses and the secondary effects of such uses when combined with alcohol.
All right. So this particular ordinance is already in the record. I mean, the board has already passed this in 2008.
Yes, there's an existing ordinance on the books from 2008.
Okay, and my apologies to the board as it relates to this particular document. This particular document we attached late today, and I understand why you want to table it to review. It's an important document, and it's necessary to understanding the rest of the zoning hearing. So, again, my apologies, but that particular document is necessary for our discussion.
This is the ordinance and the finding of facts? Or just the ordinance?
This is the actual ordinance that was passed. And it discusses, I mean, as you'll be able to review, it discusses secondary effects and analysis related to other cases. But we'll discuss it in more detail as
And it includes the certification at the back, right?
correct.
Yes.
The board must understand that this is 11 pages worth of documentation that we just got. So that's the reason why I made my own statement that we wouldn't be taking a vote on this. I want to get a chance to review that. Additionally, H, got that tonight?
Yeah. Would you mind if we just, that's fine. We'll skip to H. H is also another document. It's the legal publication notice that notifies everybody in the community what?
This is basically proof that the notice of the hearing was published in the newspaper. And typically, this is when you would get back. This is would be presented to you typically before the meeting to prove that the proper notice was published in the newspaper, that you can go ahead and have it.
But we hear loud and clear that you wanted stuff beforehand now, so we will try to accommodate that in the future. And going back one step to Exhibit G, what is Exhibit G?
G is the proposed resolution that would, in fact, that spells out all the changes. This would be presented to the village board for approval should you agree and recommend in favor of the proposed and text amendments.
Good. All right, very good. This actually, the resolution, this is the document that requires or allows this particular board to proceed, allows the application to be filed. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. My mistake.
That's Exhibit G, correct?
That is. So in other words, that was the authority I was talking about before, that the board is able to authorize staff to proceed with the application for purposes of you having the zoning hearing today.
What was the date on the authorization?
The resolution was passed
October 2011.
October 2011. All right, so those are the exhibits. We can go ahead and give a brief explanation of some of these documents, more specific. If the board is comfortable with doing that before we obviously continue for any further discussion and hearing on Thursday, if that's acceptable. Okay. All right. Basically, the application that was provided in Exhibit A is for purposes of, you indicated, changing the zoning in the OI and manufacturing district, correct?
Correct.
Okay, let's skip ahead a little bit to the zoning map, which is Exhibit C. Now, to the right or to the east of 25th Street, you see a number of parcels that run along 25th Street. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You see those documents that run along 25th Street? Okay. Those are not subject to any changes today, is that correct?
No, they're not.
Do we have the big map for the benefit of the people in the audience, that they can see what we're talking about here?
Is it bigger now?
Can we go over it for a few seconds? I'll go see what's in the red.
There is a big county map on here somewhere.
Yeah, I know. We got a handout here so we can see people out there.
Right, and then we have color copies and we have black and white copies too. And black and white copies, the meeting that's, well, I put it, I don't know.
I got questions about the colors.
But they didn't have one.
But the one you gave us, these dark colors, they're all the same. I got a color one too, I put it one from my guy. Well, we color code things for distinction. You give me black and white copies, so I can understand one from the other.
You can see it's only a commercial land. This blue right here is,
It's light and it's dark. That's what I.
Okay, what streets are you talking about?
First of all, this is 25th Avenue. The village hall would be right up in there. When you cross under the tracks and then you turn, it's going to be a shortcut.
At 19.
Right. So that's what this is here. You take out the drive and then make that left and then right. These in here, including that little.
I go.
This is the entire.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
This blue over here is
Is it included?
So right now, this is the entire. These are the companies that are these companies are this one right here is the Broadview.
Mr. Bernardo,
that has different businesses that
This might have that.
Yeah, they have
Right next to it is
Is what?
Vandy's.
Okay.
The Vandy is on both sides. They're not. I believe it looks, as I go by, this is probably the advanced building, and this is where they're talking about trucks. So it's those, but then at the upper here is Park Drive. If you drive it down, it's the first street you can turn in. And then this is 27th Street. Okay. These two buildings are here. It's not that one
What did you just say?
No.
Okay.
And that building is now. They've been over there a couple times, but this time.
We'll go back on the record.
There's the easel. That building's over there.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay. All right. Now, we did actually produce zoning maps for the board too, but we're going to make one correction, so we're going to have to get them to you by Thursday. Here's basically the zoning map, and I'll show it to you first. You can look at yours, and then I'll show it to the board. I mean, to the village public here. Here is the existing manufacturing district. I reference 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things. These are not part of it. Existing manufacturing district and proposed manufacturing district, which is the subject of all this particular zoning today. Okay.
I'm sorry, does that also include the...
No, 4 parcels.
If anybody's interested, essentially here is...
Did you write it up so that
You've got one.
Yeah. Whatever,
Here's the existing manufacturing district, right here. All the rest of the purple is existing office industrial district. And the parcels in question are here next to the railroad tracks, between the railroad tracks and 25th. These 2 parcels here, and these 2 parcels here. These are the 4 parcels in question. Into manufacturing.
What street is that going?
This is 25th.
And east to west?
This is Parks Drive.
Parks, okay.
Here's Cermak. Here's Roosevelt. Those are your main streets. Here's the railroad tracks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we can get back to this. So we're subject to the application are these 4 properties to the west of 25th.
Correct.
Okay, and those are the sole properties that are being discussed and relates to the map amendment. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so we have 2 manufacturing districts, and why are particularly these particular properties that we're discussing? Why put them next to the railroad tracks?
Well, we're talking about a heavier, more intense industrial use. The current OI is more of a light industrial / office district. The current M, the manufacturing district, is for your more heavier uses, which we're trying to isolate, keep them as far away from any negative effects onto residential properties. So we're kind of buried in the middle. Here's railroad tracks, which is an appropriate location.
Are these 4 properties currently 100% occupied?
100% no. And there's a multi-use one. I don't know if it's every single tenant in there is.
Are any of them 100% occupied?
That includes it. Most of them are. There's the one that's just south of here that's like a multi-use, with multiple tenants in there. There's like a trucking company and a bunch of stuff.
We're just talking about the 4 parcels here, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Out of the 4, which one are we talking about? That's not 100% occupied?
I don't know if it's 100% occupied. That's one. I'm just specifying that I don't know. It's multi-tenants. There's a sign that's got about 10 different tenants on there.
Is that the larger parcel that's on the connector?
I believe so. If it's not 100%, it's close, but I can't say that it's 100%.
And the other ones, do we know what the percentage of occupation is?
I believe they are occupied.
And that includes the 2 smaller properties to the north?
Correct.
Okay.
That's an inquiry you can make in between the meetings as well, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, actually, the two to the north are, there's a lithographics and I don't know what the other one is, but they're both shape-proof something.
All right, the other parcels, there was the taxi, we can, it's the same owner, Vanny Foods owns.
Vanny Foods is the other one, and then the Broadview Partners, the multi-use. It looks primarily full, but there could be one, I don't know.
And we will inquire for your partner vote and make that determination. All right, let's go to Exhibit D. What was the main purpose behind revisiting some of these uses that are within the M1 manufacturing as well as the OI district?
Well, this use list basically shows you the existing OI, well, not all the uses, but some of the uses in the existing OI district and the existing manufacturing district. When we went back and looked at the proposed map amendment, and I went back and looked at the list, this is a good opportunity to go ahead and take a look at that list and make some minor corrections. You'll see on the list that primarily, since we're dealing with the manufacturing district, there's some pretty intense uses that probably aren't appropriate anywhere in the village. So we went ahead and made some minor tweaks to the OI and the M, primarily to strike some uses that really aren't appropriate, such as there's some heavy-duty manufacturing uses, chlorine production, fireworks manufacturing, those types of things. Just the way Broadview is configured, your industrial districts aren't necessarily separated by huge distances from residential districts. So some of those uses we just recommended striking completely from the list.
What's the reasoning behind changing the adult use from special use to permitted use in the manufacturing district versus the OI?
We will get to that.
Can we, I mean, there's going to be a direct question because there's more to the adult use as relates to the changing of 10.46, 11 and some other things. So we'll get involved in that in specifics. If that's okay, we'd like to do it this way. Okay. Just generally speaking for the public, which uses are we attempting to eliminate entirely from the village?
Feed store. Yeah, feed store.
Okay.
Crematory, creosote manufacturing, fireworks, explosives manufacturing, petroleum refining, smelters, stockyards and slaughterhouses, and car distillation and manufacturing.
And hotel motel.
It matches the fee store.
To a point, yes, those are, that is, hotel motel are proposed to be removed from the OI and the M. They are still permitted in the commercial district.
Mr. Chairman, I understand there will be a public comment portion of this meeting. And if there's corrections or other things that we discussed during that time period, it's entirely irregular for the public to speak during the presentation. They'll have their opportunity. I just want to make sure that was clear.
Since we don't have a designated sergeant at all, I guess I'll ask the public, can we not, because this is being recorded, can we not have outbursts from the public that are going to be making it upon our recording when we haven't opened up the floor to public comment? Please.
Okay, and just so, thank you. Just so you know, I mean, feed store in the OI district and the M district is eliminated, but that doesn't mean they're not allowed in other locations within the village, is that correct?
Well, in that particular instance, I don't believe feed store is permitted in the commercial district.
All right, so
in the case that she mentioned, hotel motel, that is still permitted in the commercial district.
and I'd like just to make an amendment to our application. We don't not want to eliminate feed store. I think this is just a typo. I believe that an amendment to this application that we would allow, a feed store within the manufacturing district. So we would change an X to a P.
For proposed in the manufacturing district?
Yes, for proposed in the manufacturing district. That's not a use that's similar to a stockyard or slaughterhouse. I think a feed store has its place in the village in the proper location. That would be,
And that wasn't one that I necessarily proposed to eliminate because it's so offensive, just that it's a urban area. You're not really going to see much. It'd be more appropriate in a rural environment, but it doesn't hurt to do that.
so you've got your opinion from your zoning individual, and you make your own decision as it relates to obviously what you believe it to be. And again, any of these uses that we're changing, again, with the zoning board, you can make amendments, conditions, and so forth. No, I keep on repeating that, and you know that already, but just sort of keep that in consideration when we're reviewing. Okay, so those are pretty much the intense uses that we've sought to eliminate from the village. And obviously what happens is that a stockyard came in and wanted to operate a location in the village, what would they have to do?
At this time?
Yeah.
Well, at this time it's permitted, but if you went ahead and eliminated it from the list, then you would have to come back and apply for some type of relief from the zoning ordinance, a special use.
Because as the proposed amendment, it would not be permitted, period.
Yeah, it's actually a prohibited use that they cannot operate. They would actually physically have to come and request a text amendment. I think our ordinance allows them to come in and request, special use application to make it, because there's unlisted, and I'll make a note of giving you a copy of what happens in those circumstances, but there isn't in part of the ordinance that if they're not listed, they have to come in for special, coming back in front of you. So when someone comes in with an application, say we want a slaughterhouse, you would get to consider that and obviously make a recommendation to the board as to whether to accept that or not. And of course, we don't have anybody coming in as a slaughterhouse, it's just an example, but just for that purpose. Okay? All right. So, and the purpose of moving some of these from the OI to the manufacturing was why?
Primarily because the OI is the less intensive district than the M is intended for your more intensive uses. The OI is intended for your lighter industrial uses. So we're trying to correlate the correct uses to the proper zoning district.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So now we've sort of identified the issues related to the manufacturing and the OI as it relates to the changes to the use. I guess before we move to the adult use portion of this presentation, is there any questions related to those changes to the OI and the manufacturing district?
So we just talk about exhibits A through D, correct?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about exhibit B, which is the amendments partially the ordinance, which we'll talk in conjunction about the adult use. Okay, so I assume that there's no questions related to that? No?
No questions for me? No questions?
All right, let's look to, thank you, exhibit B. All right, and exhibit B is a change to the adult use ordinance. It's amending section 10-4-6 in parentheses 11, adult business. Do you see that exhibit?
Yes.
Okay. Currently, there was an adult use ordinance that was passed in 2008, which was Exhibit F, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you spoke of the secondary effects as it relates to adult use. Is that correct?
Yes, that was part of the study when that ordinance was passed.
Okay, and that was put in place. And can you look and see what changes were made to this Exhibit B that will be different than what was the 2008 amendment?
I believe item D, that details hours of operation. The times of operation were slightly tweaked from the original ordinance that was passed. Item E was added a minimum distance distance from other adult businesses, which is basically a separation between one adult business from another to 1,000 feet. Item F, there are specific sensitive land uses that are spelled out in the state code that any adult use must be sufficiently distanced from schools, daycare centers, parks, forest preserves, cemeteries, churches, those types of things. It was previously spelled out, the separation requirements per the state code. They changed it to not put the actual distance requirements in, to just refer to the state code, so that that's ever changed, we're going to go back.
Just for the record, what is that distance right now?
1,000 feet.
Well, let me clarify, legally speaking. Right now, the current statute section indicates that it's 1,000 feet from certain locations, with the exception of any county with a population of more than 800,000 and less than $2 million, 2 million inhabitants. Okay. There is basically for a new location for an adult use. It's statutorily 1 mile within Cook County. So it had to be 1 mile from the protected uses. In other words, it had to be 1 mile from a church, a school, a forest preserve, a cemetery, and so forth. So that's for a new use. So that's particularly what is going on in the state statute that was passed, within the last, I believe, 2010 was the order. I'll get the exact date that it was passed.
I'm sorry, you said for a new use?
Correct. For a new use, the statutory section requires 1 mile separation.
So anyone coming in the future would have to be 1 mile currently?
Under the state statute. Correct.
And our section, under ours, it said 1,000 feet.
It originally said 1,000 feet. Now here's the situation as it relates to statutory construction in Illinois. Because we're a non-home rule municipality, we can't be in conflict with the state statute. Okay? Therefore, to avoid all the confusion as to whether or not we're 1,000 feet, 15,000 feet, 100 feet, Illinois can change the ordinance a million times if they want. So we are just going to be consistent because we have to with state statute. So if that makes sense, if they decide to change it from 1,000 feet or a mile to 100 feet, then we would be within that condition of following state law. Okay, that's why we rewrote it than 1,000, because now we're sort of in conflict with the state statute. Okay, because
but we are following the state statute.
we have to, as a matter of course, we have to follow the state statute. So one of the reasons that, and Mr. Ayers will let you opine as well as this, one of the reasons why we decided to create the manufacturing district, we have one already, but creating another manufacturing district, is if the state law changes, instead of, let's say, 100 feet or 50 feet from a residence or a church is constitutional or allowable, you've now designated an area in which they have, that adult use to be allowed to operate. Is that correct?
That is correct. Basically, we want to minimize the possibility of any type of a free speech claim on your zoning ordinance, essentially. We want to zone them completely out and give them free speech case.
There's an opportunity, I think, to just to clarify, is what he's indicating is that if someone can challenge our zoning code, they can do it. They've done it. If there's a permitted use in a location, then there would be less of a chance for them to make a zoning challenge and expending the valuable funds of the village and so forth in defending such a claim.
Let me ask this question. If someone were to come in today and create a club, would that be a new application today? Is there an old application existing today that would be grandfathered in that does not have to follow us?
So the question that he's asking is if the state, the new ordinance, if passed by the village, would the individual defendant, straight on, he's had too many trials this week. Actually, what he said was actually pretty good. Basically, if someone came in after this ordinance was passed, what would happen?
The ordinance applies. There's no current application on file that's grandfathered in. There's nothing happening right now that would not be subject to whatever.
Okay, so we don't have an application on file right now that supersedes any of this.
Okay. All right, so we've established now consistency with the Illinois statute. We've established locations within the village, additional locations in the village in which Broadview could operate. What else have we done?
That's all. There's some, I think that stuff was all in. Was the site plan stuff in? All right, the last one, all adult businesses and site applications are subject to review by the development review committee. That was added as well. Just an extra layer of review.
And in research, did you make a search of the area and determination of whether other municipalities were trending this way as it relates to allowing for permitted uses of necessary zoning tools?
Yeah, I didn't do an exhaustive search, but I did check most of the neighboring communities in the western suburban area, and many, not all, but many, most in fact, had some type of regulation on file regulating adult businesses within the zoning ordinance. Some just dealt with it, a regulatory business license issue, but most of them actually addressed it in the zoning ordinance as well.
Of course, based on the current state statute of 1 mile, new properties that's being requested to be rezoned, do they fit inside the 1 mile or outside?
Yeah, well, so in terms of this.
So if I look by the current state statute, there is nowhere in Broadview that this business could operate. Is that
There's no location within the village of Broadview that is not 1 mile from a church, a school, a cemetery, a park, all those uses. There is no location within the village.
And is there anything that will prevent us from using the state statute?
We must use the state statute.
Okay. So we can't circumvent that. Is that correct?
You can't.
As a board? As a
You can't have
village?
any lower standards than the state.
And if we're following the state statute, I'm not understanding why we're here then, because there's nowhere legally in the village of Broadview where this business can actually exist. So we're rezoning and passing ordinances that's the matter.
Again, the ordinance is being passed as a zoning technique. We're clearing up all the zoning as it relates to manufacturing and OI. And within that, we're designating, as other municipalities have, a particular location for adult use. And the reason why we have done this is because we don't have any control over what Illinois statute does or changes. So it could be that they change it tomorrow. They did 2 years ago, it was 1,000, they changed it to a mile. You know, we don't know whether or not that will change in the future, but if it is, let's say they did go to 50 feet. Okay? That opens up a whole area in which they can operate and they're not going to do that with us. You know,
So the new locations do fall outside of the 1,000 feet, is that correct? The current 1,000 feet. The current locations are more than 1,000 feet away from the cemetery, is that correct?
Yes.
Point of clarity here. My understanding from what I've read already is we don't have a zone area that according to our statute is designated for adult use.
Not true. No, that's not necessarily true. I mean, there's areas in which they can operate within the village. But there's other locations. This is just designating one location rather than locations all over the village. It's establishing one particular location in which adult use can operate if they choose to come to Broadview and they comply with Illinois statute and obviously our bulk requirements and obviously any sort of permitting that's required and our site plan review. So it creates one and eliminates any other issue as to where they can go if they want to come to town, which is a zoning tool used by many others.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Previous to us changing the zoning map, all the areas were available for adult use.
Correct.
We changed the zoning map, put them over by the railroad, designate their area as an area designated for adult use. Now, no one can come in and say we're violating freedom of speech laws that it cannot exist in the village. We have a place designated, but we put it over an area that's far enough away from residents and other restricted areas. And now that is the new adult use area, and nothing outside of that area will be permitted area.
And that's correct.
That's
correct. Is that correct? That is correct. All right. Now, as a matter of course, I will try to bring some documents, next time on Thursday. Try to get them translated tomorrow, so you can look and see that that's the reasoning behind it. It's the industrial use is a location where most of these manufactured industrial most of the adult uses are placed, and that's as a matter of course. It doesn't affect their business too much. That's whereas I'll bring those studies and I'll get you studies and that just to help along that process. But yeah, you articulated it. That being said, the other manufacturing district that is in place, technically, depending on what state law says, would be another location to take out.
So this area really is at the extreme border of the boundary of Broadview. And it really runs all the way up to where the borderline for where Broadview ends is.
Those are the railroad tracks. There's still a little bit of Broadview past there.
Across the railroad
So what is across the railroad tracks?
More industrial.
So there's a buffer before it gets to obviously the residential district in Westchester. So it eliminates, it buffers from all residences, including our neighbors to the west. I believe that is all that I have for presentation tonight. And I would like to reserve the ability to present additional evidence prior to Thursday and to have that heard on Thursday if that's acceptable before we turn over to public comment or make that request.
The only request I have is if we're going to have something else to review by Thursday, when will we have it?
Tomorrow.
Okay. So if there's anything else for us to see, we'll have this one before Thursday.
You said 4:30?
No. Thursday time. We haven't said what time we're having. We're going to announce it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, you move to enter what's been submitted in evidence.
Yes, can I have a motion for us, one of our board members to present what has been presented to evidence for documentation for the record?
Motion to present documents A, B, C, D, and E into evidence for the rezoning of the Iowa District to manufacturing.
There's also
EFG. NH also.
The original document had I. It's I down.
The notices were given to the property owners on this document, correct?
Correct. Page before that's the certification that was done.
And there's 5 property addresses.
Yes, sir.
Can I get a second to my motion? To the motion is on the floor right now. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, I one opposed and vote for accepting the but we have a call. Motion passes. Who's voting? Everybody voted. Well, we had to take the vote to put the evidence on the record and accept, and that was passed.
Oh, no, I just want to know what the number of votes I'm sure is.
Let me just clarify for the record. A motion by Board Member Twente to enter documents and evidence was seconded by Board Member Reese to end the motion, and was carried with an objection by Board Member Perry.
Okay. Is there any other matters that we need to consider this evening before we set a next meeting time and date, which is going to be on this coming Thursday? Proposed time for that meeting because of previous obligations is going to be pushed back from 7 to 7:30.
Answer that question. There's 5 property owners on here, and you've got 6 properties listed. Is one of them dual address or something?
No, it's four properties that are subject to the,
Do we have to notify the property owners on the east side of 25th? No.
no.
If I may, one of the properties is subdivided. There's 4 properties. One was subdivided to owners of record, so they were both informed.
Any other questions? I'd like to open up the floor for public comment at this time. If there's nothing else, that concludes your presentation.
Yes, with the reservation, obviously. Additional documents.
That's fine. Okay, at this time, we're going to allow the public we'll allow time for public comment before we reschedule our meeting.
Mr. President, are you all taking questions at this time?
Well, I guess if the attorney wants to answer questions, we'll make it comments or questions, okay?
Well, I've got a split question. The old ordinance, the old adult ordinance regarding adult use had a limit of 1,000 feet from any school, church, cemetery, and it also had the word public housing, which was always a debatable term. I'd like my question is, does the current or pending ordinance have those 2 words in public housing?
The actual, no, it does not. Public housing is from the state statute, not from the ordinance, I believe.
Well, we copied the state statute in that particular reference.
So
It was in our ordinance because it was copied right out of the state ordinance.
Okay.
And now we just refer to that section.
If there's a possibility that our ordinance, following the state, will have public housing in it, then I'd like to ask for how do you define public housing? My definition is housing occupied by the public. But once again, it's been a debatable term, does anyone here have a different opinion of public housing? Someone said it has to be a project. No projects out here. So why would our ordinance have public housing in it? And I think with the 1,000 feet, which made Westchester a target, because that's not public housing. That's not private. But in my definition, that is housing occupied by the public, and they should always be considered up and down Garden Road. As a matter of fact, the current properties that have been targeted, we follow the 1,000 feet as opposed to stakes mile. The current properties would be as a bird flies, which is, I believe, the way they measure distance. It's less than 1,000 feet in Westchester, which is public housing. If you look at the map, you go over the railroad tracks, you know, that's less than 1,000 feet.
Public housing is, that phrase and all those uses that comes right out of state code. Public housing is defined by the state. It's not just a house.
You know what the definition is?
I don't know the exact wording off the top of my head. I can look it up for you, but.
The public housing is funded by the federal government, which subsidize rental or mortgages. We don't have any public housing in Broadview. I mean, if you want to know the definition. Community housing
That's project.
is funded by the federal government.
Ordinance, you know, and I think that's important. I think that the framers of the original ordinance meant housing occupied by the public, but the interpretation has changed, been over to the user, you know, all these kinds. Just wanted to know, just curious. Oh, yeah. I thought I heard someone say that with the new proposed manufacturing district, as opposed to IO, that would be a permitted activity for adult use?
Well, permitted subject to all the regulations that are in the proposed ordinance.
But not special use.
No, it's not classified. It's not proposed to be classified as a special use. It's proposed.
So in essence, we're loosening the requirements for adult use.
I don't quite understand that question.
I want to say, you know, prior to this, they had to get a special use permit to operate. They don't have to do that anymore. That makes it easier for an adult facility. So, but
Changes from existing to proposed.
permitted.
Permitted.
Yeah, that means they don't have to get a special use permit to operate. Why don't we do that?
That's the question.
Hi, I have a comment based on just what you said, to let's not do that. Let's keep it to be special use. I don't even want to see an adult business here, period, but I understand the reason for doing it so that we are not sued per se. But still, this is a family community, and let's make it difficult to have these businesses come in here.
Can you state your name for the record?
Excuse me?
Can you state your name for the
My name is Shirley Redmond. R-E-D-M-O-N-A.
Actually, we should probably go to the other record. Give your, if you live in Times, can you give your address?
Yes, 2246 South 24th Avenue.
Mr. Ely, can you?
John Ely, 2305 South 23rd, Broadview.
I have two questions. My name is Brenda Williams. I reside at 2249 South 24th Avenue. Number one, first of all, this is only the second meeting, a zoning board meeting that I have been to, and only recognize two faces on the panel. So my first question is, just briefly, if you could just tell me your first and last name, how long you been living in Broadview? How long have you been on the zoning board committee? And then third, I would like to know, because I do attend village board meetings, have been for many, many, many years, the term family keeps coming up. I am a wife, a mother, and a grandmother. This proposed area that we're discussing is not too far from where I would travel or any of the other neighbors within Broadview would travel. How are we going to define what can be adult coming to our community? Are we going to start allowing stripping clubs to come? Will adult use be porno bookstores? I mean, where's the limit, and what do we see as a village for our community, or has it even been defined? Because I'm really personally quite fed up with people making decisions and are getting really long-term, a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, as to where we see our community. I just can't see my grandchildren being in a community where they may be subject to child molesters, predators, so forth and so on. I mean, it's happening. Stone Park, when I first moved to this area, you went down Manheim and you saw prostitutes. Daytime, afternoon, evening, no big deal. What's going to be defined by adult that we as a community will be able to police, sanction, and restrict? I don't know if are we opening ourselves up to a can of worms? We already have the Joe T Club that we're dealing with because whoever did due diligence and then decided to change things after the fact. I just don't know if we really have a handle. And to say that we're going to come back on Thursday, I don't even know if Thursday really gives you enough of time to really discuss and vote on what's sitting before you, because quite frankly, I have only heard 2 people speak during this meeting. And what you're going to vote on is going to affect every single resident in Broadview. And it would be nice if we knew where you stood individually on this particular subject that you all are faced with. And that right now, I only hear 2 voices and 1 opposed.
I will ask at the discretion of the board members if they want to address this issue. I don't know.
Well, first, can they address their name and how long they've been living here in Broadview? Because you all are setting the standards by which the village pretty much operates in terms of businesses coming to the board meetings, trying to have a license, so forth and so on.
Sure.
If I could just
go ahead. What you want to say?
The board can indulge Ms. Williams as to name and residence. I would strenuously advise against discussing your position outside of the vote process.
I was going to say that. I was going to say, to the point of identifying who the board members are, where we live, how long we've been in the village, I'm certain the board members would not have any opposition to doing that. It would not be proper for the board members to give their stance on a particular issue prior to a vote. That's public record. It's not anything going to be done in the dark. You'll know how every board member votes regarding rezoning, because that is part of public record.
Brandon, but I don't hear any discussion other than 2 people up here talking about what you all are going to come back and vote on. I have personally no confidence level right now because I hear no dialogue amongst you all. And I'm very concerned about that in our community because it seems to be a pattern that 1 or 2 people may speak out and everyone else is just quiet. I don't know if you're in agreement or not in agreement. This is what I'm just trying to hear from you. How do you see things?
Okay, I'll start off by identifying myself. Okay. My name is Wayne Arnold. I'm the current president of Broadview. I've been living in Broadview. This is my 11th year. I have 2 children, both who attend Dendock Public School. A son and a daughter, 8 years old and 7 years old. And we live on 20, I stay right next to Central Road on 18th Avenue. So I'm right down the street from Dendock School on the other. So I'm a father. I work for Chicago City Colleges. I'm a teacher. So I'm very much aware of the public debate regarding issues, okay? I won't give you my stance in terms of what my opinion is, but I will say this. As a community, I think we must always be concerned with our budget, the monies we have coming into the village, and any possible litigation that the village will be involved in because we have violated or put restrictions on people's free speech rights. That's a concern for for me personally. Other than that, I will not tell you how I feel about the particular ordinance or rezoning, but that's a little bit about my background.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. Reynolds, just so I can make the point that you made at the very beginning here is that you have not had an opportunity to review all the documents nor the board, and that, once you receive those documents and any additional evidence, I'm confident there'll be some discussion related to it. So I think it's an unfair question at this point in time, considering that you have not thoroughly reviewed all the documents as a result of not receiving them.
I concur with that, but I'm saying it would still not be proper for any board member to give their position on something that we haven't voted on. It's just not proper protocol to do that.
A person can ask whatever, just as businesses can come here and say, we want to come to Broadview. As a resident, I'm going to ask because I want to know, and respectfully so. You just said you don't have to, but you can move down the line, and I want to know how long the other board members have been living here in the community.
Well, I can tell you, my name is Minnie Reese, and I've been here since 1978, so from 78 to now. And I'm not going to discuss anything in the packet because I haven't read it, so I can't give you that.
And see, that's another thing. I wouldn't even know that you didn't read because you didn't say anything during the dialogue. So once again, my concern is...
Let me just say this. If I haven't read anything, I can't give you the dialogue. I just got this when I came in here.
We have had other board members that would say openly, we have not received this, therefore I can't. But this is the first time I heard you say that, so I will respectfully accept your response.
And I've been here since 1978. I do have a family, a wife and a mother, and a former school teacher.
Louis Puente, I've lived around you for 4 years. And your concern, just as I think all of us on the board are, we're concerned about how Broadview can benefit. I live in the city. I want to stay here for a long time. And my concerns, just as yours are, you want our community nice. I want my community nice. I like going out in my yard. I don't want to feel like anything is bad for our community. Like I said, just with anything, you have to look, you have to read, you have to understand what's going on before you give an honest opinion. There's arguments on things. And but without really knowing everything that's on the table, it's hard to just come say this is wrong. There's a lot of things wrong, but you have to really kind of see your facts, give a really good opinion instead of, sometimes, saying it. So I reserve myself to look at what's there first before I choose to, comment on anything. So my opinions. You're welcome.
Transparently married, 2 kids, 2 boys. I live in Broadview for over 20 years. And I refuse to take a vote and vote yes on something I haven't read, understood, and we're making changes as we're sitting here and going through the meeting. So I can't vote on anything as far as finding the facts till I go through this and get the documents that I need to look at and understand what the heck I'm voting on to start with. I can't understand I'm making changes as we're going through the meeting. And you expect me to vote these are facts? Then there can't be facts about making changes while I'm sitting here. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, my name is Beverly Keene. I've lived in Broadview since 1975, and I've been on the zoning board since 2004.
My name is Michael Tile. I've lived in Broadview my whole life. 1959, formerly a village board member. I stepped down and did not run in 2009 due to health issues. I was asked to come back on the village board. I refused to because of my health issues. I want to volunteer my time and help the village maintain its future. I know it's past, I know where it should be going, and that's why I agreed to come on the zoning board in a more limited capacity than a village board member. The other thing for you to consider in the audience today as well is that the zoning board is just basically an advisory board to the village board. There are many things that came before us when I was on the village board that I questioned. In fact, when I was on the village board, I was about the only one that would question things for years. And I got tired of it. I had other people run for election and won and told me they would back me up to question things. did. And I got tired of that too. And I'm here to make a difference. I am one of the people that has been named in a lawsuit against the village based on some bad zoning ordinances for adult use in the past. And I'm proud to be able to be here to help change ordinances, especially adult use ordinances, that brings in compliance with state law when we were in violation of prior to this. Now, whether I'm in favor of adult use in town is a personal decision that I will not reveal to you, but I feel that we need to bring the ordinances into shape, conforming with all state statutes, so we don't have another lawsuit on our hands. The village has been sued. Several members of the current zoning board are also being personally sued based on that problem with the zoning ordinance we had before. And it's a shame that we all have to go through that. As a village board, when I was on the board, we had people from the plaintiff actually come to this chamber and threaten us individually for our homes, all of our cash, our families, put us out on the street if we didn't allow the plaintiff to come in town. And we stood our ground at that point. I basically dig in when people challenge me. Okay. And that's where I stand at this point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Moreno.
Judy Brown Marino, 2841 South 10th Avenue in Broadview. First of all, we still haven't really got an answer as to why, and I guess this would be better directed at Mr. Fernaro than the board, because the board hasn't done this yet, but why would we want to eliminate the special use procedure for adult use businesses? We still have the special use procedure and the special use requirements for a number of other businesses beyond those that are just listed in the use table, you know, the changes. I would characterize my concern about that differently than Ms. Redmond. It's not so much a matter, in fact, it's not a matter of making it difficult, but more a matter of allowing scrutiny of the type of business and the impact that it would have, whether it's next to homes or next to other businesses. So can you explain why we would be dropping that part of the process? I mean, this is the third time that it's been asked and we still haven't been given an answer.
Whether or not Mr. Brown wants to answer the question, this is a decision yes or no.
Okay, I do have a couple of other comments, so.
Comments?
Okay, so I mean, if there's not going to be an answer coming, I'll move on. The state statute that changed the distance from 1,000 feet to 1 mile has been challenged in the courts, and I'm wondering where that challenge is right now. Has it been decided at the appellate level? Is it going to the Supreme Court, or do you know where that case is right now? Mr. Fernaro.
Go ahead. We have more than two questions, I'm assuming, so go ahead. I'll answer them.
So you want all the questions and then you'll answer them all together?
Sure.
Okay. You made a comment earlier, or the comment was made earlier, that by changing this zoning it provides additional locations. But actually, according to the use table, adult use would no longer be allowed at all in the office industrial. So am I reading this correctly, that with the given the manufacturing district that's in existence now and its proximity to the cemetery, that we would then end up, should this be passed as it's presented, we would have a total of 4 properties that would be considered eligible under our current zoning. And I'll give you a chance to jot that down, because then the next question is, earlier in this process, back in 2007, TSCA identified 12 properties that are considered eligible for an adult use business. In other words, where Broadview can show, provided that we go back to the 1,000 feet. Obviously, a 2 square mile village, if we have any churches, schools, and what have you, by definition, we wouldn't qualify under the mile. But assuming the 1,000 feet, we had 12 properties before, and that was being challenged. Now, if I'm reading this correctly, we would have a total of 4 properties that would qualify under the 1,000-foot rule. So we're not talking about additional properties, we're talking about reducing the number of properties. And what's more, although I realize that the way I understand it, the issue about Chicago Joe's, which is their property is in office industrial, that would be decided on the basis of the zoning that was in place back in December of 2006 when they filed their application. But
I would just caution the board that we're treading very close to discussing pending litigation, which I'm troubled by how this process has gone thus far as it relates to Ms. Brown Marino's prior discussions related to this. I'm not. This is not related. We have to tread very carefully, and as it relates to her discussing pending litigation, which is kept solely for the purposes of the elected officials. And her being an elected official, I'm very surprised that she's proceeding down this road, and 3 or 4 of her questions are sort of directed at that. I'm concerned that she's doing that. I gotta be perfectly honest. So,
well, if I can address,
if she continues along that line, I will interject again. But I just want to advise her that she's treading very, very close to violating our rules.
well, actually, 2 things I'd like to say to that. First of all, Mr. Fernaro, I did try to address these questions before this meeting. I received no communication with you whatsoever. But aside from that, everything that I have just said is public record. There is nothing that I've said about this that is confidential in any way. All of this is record from the lawsuit itself. And my concern, very much like Mr. Tile was saying, or had pointed out, we're asking the zoning board and eventually the village board to make changes to our village code in regard to adult use businesses on the eve of getting ready to go to trial. And I want to know what kind of implications there could be with this.
I should have said this before we started, but I'm going to say it now again. And Ms. Marino, you're aware of this. We tried to restrict public comment to 3 minutes. Okay, that time period is long past. So if there's nothing further that you want to say, I mean, the time is exhausted. I would like to entertain other people and have them make their comments so that we can adjourn in a timely fashion, because it's not going to go on all evening. Okay. So I would say thank you for your comments, and I'm going to recognize someone else.
Hi, my name is Doreen Gordon, 2416 South 14th. I've lived here since 1949.
You beat me.
Pardon me?
You beat me.
I beat you.
By 10 years.
But I'm a heck of a lot older than you, Mike. First of all, I want to say that now that you did your presentation, I'm very glad to see this, because this is falling much closer to the future plan that I was on the committee, served as secretary to, where we designated, for much the same reason, a specific area for adult use. One that is not easily accessible by the community, one that can be defended against in a court of law, because we have designated a section in our town so that nobody can come in and sue us. And that was a main purpose for us doing something like that, and the main purpose, I think, for you doing this also. And by designating an area that is not easily accessible, that is certainly out of the way, not close to any of our schools, our churches, our cemeteries, our park districts, our forest preserves, and are not easily accessible to the residences in Westchester, because there is a natural barrier with the railroad tracks that prohibits that easy access of going back and forth across that area, even though Distance-wise, it probably falls a little bit closer than we would like it to, but there is a natural barrier. So to what I can see, it looks like it's a good designation. The only concern I would have with it is, you know, the property owners that are surrounding it, how they're going to feel about the change to the manufacturing district. And I think that you have a good idea by doing what you're doing. After I've looked at this and listened to what you had to say, and I certainly applaud the members of the board to say that they want to read the materials so that they have a full understanding of it before they set any kind of a vote to it. But to my mind, it sounds like an excellent plan because I understand the reasoning by it. We need to set ourselves in a position that we are not going to be sued by people or people coming in can make any kind of business any place that they want to make it. And that's the main reason for doing something like this, and I think that's good. I also don't appreciate the fact that somebody who serves on a village board does campaigning here and mentions by specific name organizations that we would choose not to hear specifically mentioned. It is inappropriate and uncalled for. And I would hope that people who serve in our community would think about that before they make that issue again. Unfortunately, I haven't been going to a lot of meetings. We've had very sick puppy dogs and I've been busy working. So I am going to be going to meetings and you guys are going to be seeing me and you are going to be hearing from me. But in this particular instance, I think that you have a good plan and I want to commend you for stepping up to the plate and changing this. And I hope that this will alleviate any problems in the future. So good luck, guys.
Hi, my name is Maxine Johnson. I live at 2616 South 10th Avenue. And after listening to all the information that's been presented to the zoning board tonight, I just wanted to give a comment and say that I think this is an excellent idea to have this in the manufacturing district and for rezoning. I hope that you guys get all the information and stuff so you can make an excellent choice and decision. But as living here in the community since 1979, I think it's an excellent idea for this to be for the special use or whatever use it's going to be for. I think this would be excellent to put it in that area. That way it's not offending our neighbors to Westchester, it's not near our schools, it's not near our cemeteries. I think it's in a perfect area. And I choose not to say whether I'm for it or not, but I do believe in freedom of speech and stuff, you know, whether I agree or disagree with that. We have rights and I think we need to follow by that. And I think we as a village need to protect ourselves and make sure that we're standing in the right to do right for people coming here to do business, regardless if it's a business that we choose not to have or certain people don't like. You know, I don't like the cash for gold or gold by whatever, you know. But it doesn't matter. If they have a right and the board decides to do this, then I think you should do the right thing. But it's an excellent area, and I commend you guys on putting this together. Thank you.
Does that include public comment? If that does, I'm going to make, I'm going to suggest, ask one of the boards, can we have a motion for adjournment? Sorry, I forgot. We have to set the time for the next meeting. The suggestion amongst our members of the board today has been that we would have a meeting on Thursday, and the proposed time is at 7:30 p.m. On this coming Thursday. So it's 7:30, not 7:30. Because of previous obligations. You know, I mean, I'm the reason why I had some pushback 30 minutes. I've got a class in the real final exams. Okay, and I really cannot be here earlier than that. And so they have agreed to move the meeting to Thursday, so we're going to have time to review documentation, and the attorney has promised us any additional information that we need will be given to us by tomorrow. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to look into that, and with that being said, can I have a motion for a new date for a meeting on this conference?
Motion to adjourn, reconvene Thursday, 7:30.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
That being said, motion passed. We are officially adjourned.
Okay.